Today I'm sharing how to use a Wagner double duty paint sprayer on furniture. It's a budget-friendly, beginner-level paint sprayer that I used for a few years before I saved up for and bought a professional paint sprayer. I love that I don't have to have an air compressor to use it, and you can spray paint, top coats, and stain out of it. Today I'll be sharing specifically how to spray chalk paint and water-based top coat with it, along with how to prevent overspray and how to clean the paint sprayer. Let's get to it. To start out, I prepped this desk for paint and all of that jazz, but that's not what this video is about, so I'm not going to go into that detail here. First, I taped off the drawers to prevent the paint from getting inside of them. I'm a little bit unconventional here, and I keep the drawers in while I spray. First things first, I put a piece of painter's tape that is just a little bit longer than the length of the drawer on the back side of the drawer front, with it sticking halfway out of the drawer. Then I fold it over backwards so then the sticky part of the tape is sticking up. Then I use this really handy pre-taped plastic to wrap the drawer sides and top in plastic. The tape that we first put on creates a seal with the pre-taped plastic to make sure that no paint gets inside of the drawer. Without it, the airflow from the sprayer will lift the plastic while you're spraying, which will let the paint get inside of the drawer. If the tape on the plastic wasn't able to cover up the dovetail joints, I also like to tape over those dovetail joints just so I don't get any paint on them. Then I unfold the plastic and wrap it around the back of the drawer and put the drawer back into its slot. Then as I paint, I just open the drawer slightly to let me get to the top and the sides of the drawer front. I'll show a little bit more about that later in the video. Keeping the drawers in helps take up less space, saves my back from bending over so much, and it keeps the overspray inside of the furniture to a minimum. Next, I cover the area that I'm working in with plastic and cardboard. If I'm spraying in my garage, I hang plastic that's at least 8 feet long on the wall with nails or screws, and then I cover the floor with shower curtains and or cardboard. If I'm working outside in the open, I just lay down some plastic shower curtains from the dollar store to catch the overspray, but also to keep the dirt down. I also have a paint booth set up where I hung plastic on all of the walls, and then I laid cardboard on the floor. Every time I spray, I put down more plastic and cardboard to keep the floor from getting caked on over time. To be able to spray chalk paint or really any type of paint out of this paint sprayer, you'll have to thin it out, but Wagner takes all of the guesswork out of it. Chalk paint is water-based and can be easily thinned with water, but before putting any water in your paint, make sure that it's water-based. If it's not water-based, you need to use a thinning solvent for that type of paint. First, I pour the paint through a mesh filter and into the paint sprayer's container. This filter keeps any of the dried paint, debris, or anything that could clog your sprayer out of the paint. Trust me, even the smallest little specks can clog your sprayer, so if you don't get those filtered out, you'll end up trying to figure out why your sprayer isn't spraying. I like to add some water to the paint while it's filtering through to help it go through the filter easier, and I also stir it just a little bit with the paint stick to help it go through. Once it's filtered, it's time to get it thinned out. This Wagner paint sprayer comes with a little tool called a viscosity cup. It basically helps you measure how thick the paint is so you know when it's right. So I add a little bit of water to the paint and mix it really well. Then test it with the viscosity cup. To test if the thickness is right, dip the viscosity cup into the paint, filling the cup all of the way full. Then use a stopwatch or a timer to see how long it takes for all of the paint to run out of the bottom of the viscosity cup. You want it to completely run out of the cup in about 35 to 40 seconds. I personally prefer to add a little water at a time so I don't thin it out too much. If it gets thinned out too much, you can add more paint to thicken it up, but only if you have more paint. If it takes longer, add more water to the paint, mix it really well, and test it again. If it runs out a lot faster, you'll need to add more of the original paint, mix it really well, and test it again. Once you get it to that sweet spot of 35 to 40 seconds, put your paint sprayer together so you can start spraying. Before you start spraying your furniture though, test out the paint sprayer. You can set the spray pattern to fan horizontally, fan vertically, or spray in a circle pattern. You can also adjust how much paint comes out by twisting the knob right behind the trigger. Then spray your paint on some cardboard or paper or buckets, whatever you want, to make sure that you like the way that it sprays before you actually spray the paint on your furniture. Seriously, if something is wrong with how it sprays, you will be so glad that you tested it first. So I like to have all of my drawers pushed in all of the way when I first spray. And then I spray starting past the edge and overlapping the spray a little bit each time I go back and forth. Thinner coats are better, especially to avoid drips and runs in the paint. And then when you're done, you let the paint dry, obviously. If I'm coming back to spray another coat within a couple of hours, I just leave my sprayer as is between coats. If it's going to be the next day before I use it again, I clean it out. Also, chalk paint is really easy to clean up, so if I was using a primer or something that dries really fast, really hard, or is hard to clean up, I would clean the paint sprayer out in between coats. After the second coat was dry, I opened up the drawers in a staggered fashion to spray the tops and sides of each of the drawers. Since I put the tape and the plastic on the drawers, I'm able to spray the drawer fronts without getting any paint on the rest of the drawers. When the desk was completely painted, I cleaned out the paint sprayer so I could spray the top coat. Cleaning is so easy. First, unplug the sprayer and pull the trigger to release the paint inside your sprayer to go back into the container. Then unscrew the container and dump any remaining paint out of the sprayer and back into your paint container. Then rinse off the suction tube, the seal, and the container. And then fill the container with warm, soapy water. Then I like to spray that warm, soapy water through the sprayer and into a bucket. Spraying the warm, soapy water gets all of the paint out inside of the sprayer so you don't have any buildup in there. I spray that warm, soapy water through for about 30 seconds. Then I dump the rest of it out and fill it up with clean water to spray through the sprayer and just rinse out the inside of it. After you're done spraying, dump out any excess water and then take the paint sprayer apart to clean the smaller pieces. I use a small brush to clean inside the tip and wipe everything down with a rag. Then let it completely dry before you put it all back together. If it's wet when you put it back together and then you go and spray, you might end up with some drips of water in your finish. Don't ask me how I know. Now it's time for top coat. I like to use this Varathane water-based polyurethane on my furniture to help protect it and give it a more durable finish. First, stir it really well in the can. Seriously. Stirring is one of the most important steps when using poly. The pigments that help create the more matte and satin sheens will settle in the bottom of the can, and if they don't get mixed back evenly into the poly, then the poly will look splotchy. Then I filter it while I pour it into the paint sprayer's container, but it doesn't have to be thinned out as much as chalk paint or paint does. Actually, the paint sprayer will spray it without thinning it out at all, but you'll get a much nicer, smoother finish if you thin it out with just a little bit of water, because the water will make the poly take a little bit longer to dry, which will make it dry smoother and level out better. I don't usually measure how much water I add to the poly, but you can use the viscosity cup if you want to make sure it's just right. Just make sure to mix it again really well to mix in the water. Then you're ready to spray again. Just like before, test it out before you spray and adjust any settings you need to adjust. Then spray just like you sprayed the paint. Here's a close-up of the finish that this sprayer created with the chalk paint and the water-based poly. It's not completely perfect, but in my opinion, it's a lot faster and better than brush marks all over my furniture. And I love it as a beginner level or budget-friendly paint sprayer option. If you're looking for a completely perfect finish, you're going to have to spend a little bit more money, or a lot of bit more money, to buy a paint sprayer that is more professional and will create a really fine finish. I'll put a link to my professional paint sprayer that I absolutely love and adore in the description. If this video helped you, please hit that like and subscribe button. Thanks a bunch!